as the other two houses. So suddenly we're thrown into this very rigid house, particularly Uncle Benny. I think your father's a little more liberal, allowed more things, closed his eyes to more things. And suddenly we had to put the lights out Friday night, and we had a Shabbos sticker guy come in to put them out. We weren't allowed to carry money. We couldn't. The biggest problem I had, because you'd be struck dead by God if you sin, tearing the toilet paper. That was done by Miriam on Friday, because you're not allowed to tear on Saturday, that's work. So Friday, the Friday was, the paper was piled up, the paper was piled up on the back of the toilet seat, and we would use it. Now once, somehow, Mikey forgot to do it, and I had a delay. I always remember this. This is my first creative effort. I had to solve this problem. So what I did, I don't remember what, 9, 8, 9, 10, who knows? We were told you're not allowed to tear paper, God will strike you dead. So what I did was turned on the water faucet, and along the seam I kept wetting it until I could tease it apart. I felt I didn't tear it. And that's how I got the toilet paper. I never said anything to anybody.
That was the first really innovative thing.
That's what I said.
I did something like that. Ree and I were on a Saturday. It was when Yana was born, and they had this big bris, and everybody slept over. And Uncle Max and Pop were walking along 33rd Street and caught us picking flowers. And we said, we didn't pick them, we sawed them.
Well, that reminds me, I said Uncle Max was pretty liberal and generous. We'll sidetrack for 1 minute. He saw Irv with a girl one day walking down Chester Street at Cut School, and all he did was tip his hat. When Irv thought he was ready to. In any case, so the setup was such that there was, in a way, we were separated, but in a way that would be together, the unit.
It made the families, the
So,
three families.
We were 18 in one household in a way. Well, so we deteriorated the neighborhood. 18 kids in each house had two.
Oh, we did not. They all loved to come. Everybody wanted to come to
It was
visit,
open
and
house,
they did.
because everybody had a friend.
that's what I mean.
Everybody brought their friends.
The
Now,
others were so rigid with two.
we, the house we were raised in was a little more rigid, a little stricter. It was less fun, more serious. We put it there. It was serious. So we always went next door, Alec and I, and Rez and all, where we had our fun. We would pretend the Scaramouche dueling up the stairs, and we would sing songs. And we went there every Saturday afternoon to get cake, get the homemade
To
cake.
get shares.
Oh, Uncle
before we went
Max
to the
gave
movies.
away candy.
Now every Saturday, we would all line up, and Uncle Max had a box. In the boxes were candies, Mary Jane, Hershey buds, and all that, a variety. And he would pick out, and we lined up, and we got our shares. We called them our shares.
The reason we did that was because we couldn't buy candy on Saturday or Sunday, because we couldn't hold money, so he always had candy for us.
So candy was there for us. Nevertheless, we did buy Friday. We all went over to Thomas and bought our own.
And Saturday night,
Oh, and we used to buy
we always went to Florence for ice cream, especially at the Pesach, Sunday.
Sunday, and then in the summer
Sunday.
we took the park trolley ride. That was our salary. We got 50 cents. We went for a Sunday and we took a park trolley ride.
We had a beautiful childhood.
It sure did.
Gay,
Right across the street from the park,
a lot of love.
where there was tennis, where they were playing ball.
And where friends and family wouldn't use the showers at the Woodford Court, they always came over to the Satinsky house.
Open house, always
Used the
laughed
showers,
at.
always.
There was, in our house, there was a hierarchy. There were like 2 generations, and then one in between. There was Sal, Morris, and Irwin, who were the older ones.
Yeah.
Then there was Joe and Phil, who were in
Right.
between, and then Alec and Rez and I. Now we ran the errands. Always ran the errands. The older ones never ran the errands, but our reward was they bought the candy and all. In other words, they would say, go to Ben Hur's and buy a box of candy, and we ate most of it. So that was the unwritten rule, that the kids, we were called the kids, and they were called the boys. even when they were mature people in their 40s, there were the boys. The boys are at the mill. And the kids, we were the kids and they were the boys.
We had the same thing.
Yeah,
there
the
was
girls.
a
The college, the high school, college, when they were high school, we were elementary. When they were in college, we were high school. And they used to say the
Then
kids,
Rosener.
the kids.
Yeah, they were the Helen and Rhea.
Yeah.
You and
And the
Rosie
same
and
thing
I.
with you.
That's right.
Yeah.
May I interrupt? I think we have to take the next round. I
Guys,
appreciate it. We'll see it later, okay?
okay.
We're on.
We're on.
I'm Rose, the daughter of Max and Molly Satinsky, and this is Rhea and Marcia and Jules. Should I say Jules?
Who named me?
All right.
Formerly Yono.
With a corruption, Yema.
Yeah.
Well, you know what, this kind of chit chat.
Why not?
How about a little background on what living in the house was like, what your childhood was like? We know already about the background of your parents and my father's parents, but I'd like to know a little bit when the two houses joined together. How did you feel about it, and so forth?
You don't want to talk about your father and my father, and
I do. I want
They're
to go
together.
all the way back to that. Yeah.
Yes.
Why don't we start there?
all right. My father, Max, and my uncle, Dave, were the two youngest in their family. Their association was an
I'm not
extremely...
intruding. I am going to the bathroom.
But you
So you're now on tape now. You want a copy of this in the bathroom on tape?
Go ahead.
No, on the other side of the deck.
Should we get someone to keep people out?
You'll never get somebody to keep people out.
Yes, we can. Yeah, somebody will stand there and say, stay around.
Go ahead.
I forgot where I was.
Maybe you can put it
Starting back with your father and my.
What did I say? How far did I go?
Nothing. You were just getting ready
They were
to
the two
start.
youngest in the family.
Now,
Their relationship was always a very close one. Close in every way. They were always in business together. And from the point of view of affection, there was no question about how deep it was between them. Their businesses started with the butcher business. And originally it belonged to their father. They carried on with it. I don't know exactly when, but at some point they dropped the meat business and went into the manufacturing of wood. Here too.
1919, I think.
it was earlier than that. It was before we moved to
Yeah, come
Jerusalem.
in and talk.
It was before we moved from the Kensington area. They were in the other business.
Did Isaac start anything other than the meat business?
No,
We don't know that. I don't. I never.
I don't think so. We've never heard
So
of
the
that.
movie business,
No, that was afterward.
that had to be after, because
My father and Uncle Dave.
He did start I believe he started a smoked meat business, which was not successful.
That was at the back of the house.
Yeah.
Our house. There was a large yard at the back of the house, and there was some sort of building at the back. And they tried smoking meats for a bit, but apparently that was not very successful, and it was dropped.
There was one benefit, though. We had the greatest pickled beef you ever had all our life.
Oh, nothing like it anywhere. Anyway, I would say somewhere before 1917 that they went into the manufacturing business with a very fine Frenchman who knew the business, and they were putting
I
up
think
a
he was
company.
Belgian.
He was French.
He was French.
He was a French Catholic. And it was interesting because these were two religious Jewish men. But this French Catholic knew the mechanics and
He knew the business.
the whole manufacturing end from his French days. They had a very fine association over the years. Turn it off for a while.
go ahead.
Let's collect our direction.
That's fine. We're with the meat business.
Well,
Well, then they went into the
I
manufacturing.
was too young at that time to remember any of that. 'Cause
I wasn't born yet.
I was not born in Jewtown, where the rest of the family was all born in what they call Little Jerusalem. I was born in Strawberry Mansion, so I'm an outsider.
Now, how about the movie business? Wasn't that the next business
I
in?
don't think that they did
I think that
entirely.
came along a
I
little
think it was
later.
one of the things they did besides, didn't they?
Yeah, that was beside.
It
One
was
of the
beside
nephews,
their business.
one of the nephews, Uncle Meyer, one of their brothers, his eldest son, Jay, was a distributor for movies. And that's how they got into the moving picture business. And they owned several movies.
I
Some
think Alex
smaller, one
Satinsky would be
larger.
able to tell you more about that.
Yeah.
But that was a side issue with them. Their principal business
Straighten out,
was
sell off.
the manufacturing of woolens and worsteds. They started out in a small factory in Frankfurt area, and then
On Adams
many
Avenue.
years,
And that was
Then they moved to the Germantown area.
that was named the Frankfurt Woolen Mills.
No, that was called Frankfurt Worcester Mills. They made Worsters at that time. They bought yarn, did the weaving in the mill, and sent it out to be finished. But that was Worcester yarn only, I think, that they bought primarily then. They may have bought some woolen yarn, but they didn't manufacture the yarn at that time. And then, I guess it was just before about 29 when they bought a complete woolen mill where they manufactured their own yarn and did the blending and the dyeing and the weaving and the finishing.
And that was the Frankfurt Woolen.
That became known as Frankfurt Woolen Mills because they made woolens only.
And they were in the Germantown area, though. By that time, they had moved to the Germantown area.
It was at Worcester and Godfrey Ave.
Okay.
Yes.
And who ended up in Frankfurt Woolen Mills?
Who ended up in it?
Which members of the family?
my father, and then the sons of Barnett Satinsky, who was one of the other, the fourth brother.
Sal,
His children.
Morris, Irwin, and Phil.
And was Alex the attorney or something?
Alex
He may
never
have
went
been the
into-
attorney.
he
He didn't
never
go,
went
he's
into
asking about the woman.
the woman business.
And then
And then
And then,
your father and Joe and Reds.
Irv was in it
I
too.
said his father is Irwin.
Oh,
And the Meyer Satinsky family had only one representative, was Morris, known as MK.
see, there were two Morris Satinskys of the younger generation. So they called one by the maiden name of the mother.
There were
Morris
three
K.
Morris Satinskys.
Yeah.
now
But one was Red, so he
Reds,
was...
well, Reds was
Morris
Morris
Billigan.
P.
we were talking before about what was special about the Satinsky houses and the Satinsky family in your childhood.
Well,
It
as
was
I
an
remember,
amazing family.
as I remember, it was a very happy household, even though I was the youngest and
Oh,
only
just a very.
boy in our immediate family until when Irv came, but the age difference was so great that he and I had separate rooms. But the girls,
All
they had
dolled up.
pretty good companionship.
Each.
Men slept with Rose, I believe.
They shared rooms.
Sure, it's important. They shared rooms.
Rhea and I shared rooms. Helen and Rosie shared a room. We were all up on the third floor, and Irv had a one room by himself. There was one bathroom on that floor. Irv
Could never get into the
could
bed.
never get in because we would always knock on the door and say, "Let me in. Can you let me in?"
While you're in.
And Irv would knock, when you're finished, let me know. But he would never go down to the second floor to go to bed.
Where the bathroom was really a beautiful bed.
This was a large,
But we were all paired off. We really were.
this
It
was
was
a
a-
large four-story house. In fact, when we first moved into it, the very upper floor was rented out to two sisters and a brother. But after Uncle Dave died, after Uncle Dave and Aunt Annie died, and their children, three of their children came to live with us, they were asked to move because we needed all of the space in the
We never
house.
used those rooms for
We
living.
were. They had a room on the third
Oh,
floor.
it's not important, really.
No,
The thing to
We
me that
had-
was important.
David doesn't want to hear our arguments.
Yeah.
He wants to know about it, and I didn't even know about this
The
myself.
thing that was so wonderful too was that we all had friends. And
I
they
agree.
never waited to be invited because we never had a chance to invite them. They just came.
The house was always filled with people.
It was an open house always.
But more than that, it was filled with love. You didn't have to say, "I love you" in that household. It was in the air.
As I said before.
That was an
everybody
amazing situation. I never saw one like it elsewhere.
No, we were very lucky. It was a very happy household.
Although the girls were paired off as far as sleeping was concerned, when it came to age groups, if I recall, Sylva and Rosie were
Yes.
very close.
Yeah.
Ree and Helen were very
Yeah.
close.
And Nikki, Betty's those three.
Mickey of next door was of the same age groups.
Rose and Irv, Dee and Edna from Uncle Meyer's family were more or less closer together, yeah. And Edna really was the one we were closest to in that family, of Uncle Meyer's family. It was very interesting. Well, Ed and I were friends as teenagers. After we were married, our ways separated a little, but always we spoke to each other on the phone and managed to keep in touch. But she was the only one with whom I had any contact from Uncle Meyer's family.
But this was when we were living in Strawberry Mansion. And as was said, there was great companionship and love and happiness. And also, many of us had friends. We lived right across the street from the tennis courts. And our house became a center for reserving tennis courts, and after tennis for cleaning up and staying for sometimes a supper or a snack. Was not unusual.
And phone calls about, "Do you mind if I leave my racket at your house?" And the house was filled as it was.
And
But we had it.
Saturday and Sunday mornings, there would be a call. Would you go over and get me a card from 10 to 12 or from 12 to 2? And like fools, we always did it.
Are you interested in family other than the Satinsky side?
I said,
Because on my mother's side, there was the Block family, which was a very large family. And they came to visit us every Sunday. Well, it was part of our house. And they asked him if he wanted it. He can cut it
But I
out of
think
the
he's more
tape.
interested.
You want to have a family argument? He'll take that too.
I am taping it.
Yeah.
I think we'll confine ourselves today,
To the
anyway, to the
Satinsky.
Satinsky.
Well, only this one mention because even all the Satinskys in the house were included. The Block family would come every Sunday afternoon and evening where we had our tables set 3 times
And even four.
to take care of everyone for supper.
And we had no dishwasher, so we always had to wash the dishes and reset the table. Since we were the
12.
youngest, we were the last to eat. But there was always enough food. But it was, it was a wonderful household. And when any rabbi from out of town, and when we had the grand rabbi of Poland and his whole entourage that stayed at our house, we couldn't even walk through the dining room to get to the breakfast room because he wasn't allowed to see. We went up the steps in the living room and down the back steps into the kitchen. That's how we got around our house at that time. But it was wonderful. Everybody came from all over.
Could we close with an answer, if there is one, to the question about why the Satinsky family, I think,